Oh, it's scary, honestly. Like, it feels like it's gonna break. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing something a little bit different, some kind of little test that I thought up. This is going to be a bit of a weird one. We got 3 different releases here, varying in price ranges from a $5 release up to $135 release, and finally a $350 Ultra View button. So in today's video we are going to be shooting each of these releases, going over their kind of specs, basically the pros and cons of each, and answering the question, is it worth spending the money on something like this? Or can you get away with something like this, or even this at $5? A lot of people will go out, buy something like this for $5 on Amazon, Academy. I got mine at Academy, and they'll say, oh, I just want to basically test out if I like the feel of a button release or not, or a handheld release or whatever. I know this because I did this, and I also work in a bow shop, and people say that all the time. They come in with stuff like these, and unfortunately that is a terrible thing to do because this release isn't the greatest. We're going to be demonstrating that in today's video. I wouldn't say for $5, I mean, you get $5 of value out of this thing. I wouldn't say it's $5 of good value though. So anyways, we're going to be starting out with this release. Let's walk up to the target. This football is kind of in the way. Man, I miss my calling as an NFL punter. Okay. Also, I'm a little bit congested, so hopefully I'm not sniffing too much throughout this video. Starting out with a $5 release, taking a look at this thing, it's made entirely out of plastic, except for the little rod here. It's probably like aluminum or some kind of cheap metal. But it is, I mean, it is as cheap as it literally says China on the back. It's pretty much as cheap as it could possibly be. Like I said, I bought this thing at Academy. It was like $5. Typically like $9, but on sale for $5. I wonder why they had to put this thing on sale to sell it. It's pretty bad, to be honest. Poor build quality, and I mean, it's a $5 release. Like, it's literally the cheapest release on the planet. I don't know of a single release cheaper than this, especially a handheld. And like I said, a lot of people go out, buy something like this, this exact one from HME, just to get the feel for a handheld release, and unfortunately they end up punching themselves in the face or something. I saw a couple funny reviews online, some about like punching themselves in the nose and bloody nose and all that stuff. I've had my share of punches in the face with this thing a few years ago. Anyways, glad I've finally moved on from it. It also has a bit of a hard time actually working, so you got to be super careful. If you get one of these, if you own one, be extremely careful whenever you hook it to your D-loop. Make sure it is locked in before you try to draw it back. Okay, we're about 20 yards right here. Oh, it's scary, honestly. Like, it feels like it's gonna break. So there's a lot of travel in it, and you can't even use it like a handheld release is meant to be used. You're supposed to be able to use a handheld release with tension, you know, like you extend your palm or you use back tension to set it off. You don't actually punch the trigger. This one, you just have to punch the trigger. There's no way to use any kind of tension to set this thing off just because of the button replacement, even though it's more of a lever, I would say. Shoot another with it. Just because.
I want to get like an over-the-shoulder shot, but I don't want to get punched, so
yeah.
I'm just going to stand back.
Yeah, this thing stinks. Also, you can see my 2 arrows are super far to the right. Like, I don't know what that's about. Something with this release, I guess, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. This thing's a piece of junk, and to be honest, I don't think anyone should buy this. If you want to get the feel for a handheld release without spending all the money, this is not the right option because, one, this doesn't even give you the feel for it. This thing is its own unique design. It's plastic. You're not going to get an accurate feel, and you're probably going to end up hurting yourself or your bow. So I would never spend $5 on that. Moving on up to something a little bit more expensive, we have here the Spot Hog Whippersnapper. This thing comes in at like $135, I think, and I bought this after I bought that junky release over there to get an accurate feel for a handheld release. So I still ended up spending the $135 on this after I'd spent the $5 on that. I could have saved $5. And to be honest, this is an incredible release. for what it is, for the price especially, it is a great release, and I still like it to this day. It actually was only about 4 or 5 months ago that I upgraded to the UV. I used this thing for almost a full year. Absolutely love it still, like I said, and it's pretty well made. Spot Hogg usually makes pretty much all their products, honestly, are very robust, and you don't really have to worry about anything breaking. And I can say the same about this release. It's actually made of non-plastic. I don't even know what this is. Maybe I don't know what this is for the hand, but your button is more of a aluminum or some sort. I don't know. It's not plastic. I'm not a metal expert by any means. It's not plastic. But getting into the features of this thing, with that $5 release, it's not adjustable at all. There's absolutely no adjustment you can make on this. This actually has a barrel for your thumb. You can adjust that barrel, and you can also adjust the travel that you have in the release. So you can adjust a little bit here. There's not a ton of adjustment options, but it's at least a little bit to be able to kind of make this fit yourself and your shooting style and everything. So I played around with this, and I kind of got it dialed for what I was using it for at the time. It's been a while since I've shot this thing, honestly. But we're gonna go ahead and shoot it here a little bit. I'll say the only thing I don't like about it is how small it is. You can get the forefinger attachment, but it's a little bit small in the hand, and I use hand tension. Waffles, what are you doing, bro? I just noticed you got one shoe tied and one shoe untied. Anyways, the one thing I've noticed I don't like about it is how small it is in my hand, because I use hand tension. So basically I stretch out my palm to set off the release. And with this one, it's a little too small to feel comfortable with doing that. Like every now and then I kind of question, like, is this thing gonna go flying out of my hand? So I would say it probably lends itself better to using back tension to set it off rather than palm extension. Yeah, it still feels pretty good. I kind of jumped honestly, because it's been so long since I shot it, and I'm used to my ultra view settings, if you want to call them that, but it still feels really good. It's a very smooth release. Feels pretty good. Yeah, the Spot Hogg at 135 bucks. To be honest, you can't beat it. I wouldn't say go any cheaper with a release, a handheld release. It's very difficult, because that's kind of the threshold, is almost 150 bucks if you want to get a decent handheld release. So I know that's not cheap, but I would say, you know, we just entered the off season, at least here in Florida. I know some places like out in the Panhandle in Alabama, their season's still going. But most places it's into the off season. I'd say set aside a little bit of money, you know, for however long it takes you to save up for this, and then eventually get it if you're wanting to kind of dabble in the handheld release world, because you can't get better than this for the price. It's such a good entry-level release. I learned on it, and I was incredibly happy with it, and eventually, thankfully, was able to upgrade from there. But this is something you could stick with for the rest of your hunting career or whatever, and just be happy with it. Had to let a Amazon truck pass. Anyways, stainless steel UV button coming in at $349.99. That's a pretty good chunk of change to spend on a release, especially whenever your average like trigger release is going to be 60 to 100 bucks. But I would argue that it's worth it if you're going to be in the handheld release world. Also, one question I want to address in this video before we shoot this thing and talk about its specs, if you want to say, is people, especially at the shop, people often ask, should I go to a button release? And my reply to that is always going to be, why do you want to shoot a button release? And most of the time it's just because, oh, my friend has one and he says his groups are so much better since he got one. Okay, you know, I get that. But I don't think it's necessary to change. I think a lot of people see hunters, especially with this style release with a handheld, and they think, oh, I got to do that because this person's doing it, because it's kind of a higher end release. They want to give it a try. It's nicer. It's more expensive. Like, there's some drive to it. There's definitely some good marketing behind something like the UV button, and I'm a huge fan of it. But I also don't think that handheld releases are for everyone, because a lot of people, they shoot perfectly fine with a trigger. Like my brother, for example, he shoots perfectly fine with a trigger release, does great, he kills deer, and he has an average trigger release. I think he's got the True Fire Smoke. It's like 65 bucks, and he loves it, absolutely does great with it, shoots just as good as me. Anyways, so point I'm getting at basically is, don't feel like you have to try a hand release. If you've been shooting archery for a long time, I would say absolutely not for a beginner. It's just a lot to learn and take in whenever you're already trying to develop a form, learn your bow, etc. But if you've been shooting archery for a long time, if you're a serious bow hunter, I think it's a good option just to kind of change things up, to try to learn something new. But that $5 release is not the way to do it. Anyways, getting into the UV button, like I said, this is the stainless steel version. This thing is fully adjustable. You can adjust the position of your actual button up top. You can rotate it basically. You can also slide it in and out closer, or your barrel I should say, slide it in and out closer to the release. You can also adjust the position of the I'm gonna call this the cocker or the lever, whatever you want to call it. I don't know my terms. I probably should know what that's called, but you can see a screw here, and you can basically adjust the way it's positioned as well to really get comfortable. I've got this thing dialed. Like I said, been shooting it for a few months now. And then 2 more adjustments up here. You can adjust the travel and also the force, or the amount of tension it takes to set this thing off. So I've got it set pretty light. I like mine set light because in hunting situations, a lot of times you gotta set something off quick, and whenever you're not just mashing the button, I'm trying to be very precise with stretching my palm. I still wanna know when it's gonna go off, and it's gonna be fairly quick. So anyways, that was kind of a lot, but needless to say, this is a really high-end release. Very nice, and I am very happy with my experiences. Okay, let's take a couple shots of this thing. It just feels a lot better, smoother functionality. Like I said, more adjustable, more customizable to the way you shoot your form and everything. Amazon truck had to pass again. Anyways, very adjustable to the specific person and their form and style of shooting, which I really like. Like I said, you have a little bit of that with the Spot Hog, so that's nice, but you definitely get more with a higher end release like this. Yeah, it's just hard to even compare. Like it just feels good. If you have the money, I would easily, 9 times out of 10 recommend just go with the higher end one first. It's just that much better, and I don't think you will be upset by any means. And buy ones, cry ones. Trying not to get my arrows too close because I'm only down to these 4 functioning arrows right now, and they're mismatched. Just right after the season, down to the arrows from shooting so much. Busy at the shop, so haven't really had time to refletch. It just is what it is. Yeah, my grip is a whole lot tighter too, which we're only at 20 yards, but way tighter compared to the $5 release. And I mean, a little bit tighter than the Spot Hog, but it's not significant. I think the main thing that you're seeing as far as improvements from the Spot Hog to something like an Ultra View is just going to be the amount of customization, the amount of adjustment that you can get out of something like this is incredible. I mean, you can set it to exactly how you want it. And like I said, it all depends on your form, what feels comfortable. It's an incredible release. Anyways, yeah, pretty tight group. I mean, again, 20 yards, and I was trying not to knock any veins off, which I think we succeeded in. But yeah, again, main thing with the higher end release is going to be comfort. And it's honestly the same as like a high-end bow. You got your super cheap bows that you shouldn't even buy, like your Amazon knockoffs, which we'll have a video on that coming up pretty soon, so stay tuned. And then you got something like maybe a Bear Whitetail Max that's at mid-range that you can absolutely get away with, super enjoyable, fun to use. But you can go up to something like a Mathews or a Hoyt and get into the $1,000 price range with a bow. It ultimately just comes down to comfort, consistency, and confidence. Those are really the 3 main things I would say that kind of set apart a high-end setup from a lower-end setup. Okay, so final thoughts on cheap versus expensive button releases. I would say never go out and buy something like this. Unfortunately, that little China mark on there basically tells you all you need to know. It's a piece of junk, and it's not going to give you an accurate feel for a handheld release, and neither is even the cheap little aluminum ones on Amazon that are like 25 bucks. That's not going to either. Go out and get something like the Spot Hog Whippersnapper if you can afford it. It's only 135 bucks, which I know sounds like a lot for a release, but in the world, it's really not, honestly. In the grand scheme of things, in the archery world, bow hunting world, things are very expensive, and companies are proud of their products. So $135 for this thing, honestly, is a really good deal for what you're getting. I would say go out, buy this, shoot with it for a while. And if you want to upgrade to something down the road, absolutely do it. This is a pretty big step up from the Spot Hog, something like the Ultra View. There's some other really good ones out there. I would say it's definitely worth the money for the higher end releases, but it's also not meant for everyone. So you could go out and buy something like this Spot Hog, be absolutely happy with it, and stick with it. Because if you're comfortable, if you're shooting good, if you're consistent, confident in this release, don't switch. And I'll say the same about trigger releases. If you're confident in the release you're shooting, if you're confident in your setup, there's no need to change it. What's the saying? Don't break what's fixed. Don't fix what's not broken, I think.
I don't know.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Nice.
Anyways, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're happy with this release, you know, something similar to this, like a lower end handheld, or if you're happy with your trigger release, don't feel the need to change it up just because other people are. Anyways, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned a little something today about cheap $5 releases on Amazon. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.